Hey Summoners, how's the new season coming so far? My name is Nathan Ng and I'll be the host for the patch 12.3 rundown. Today we're going to be covering all the changes and also provide you guys with the updated tier list for all 5 roles to really give you an idea of what's good and what's not so strong in each role this patch. Make sure to subscribe because we'll be creating a ton of content covering season 12 and you definitely don't want to miss out. Without further ado, let's begin with the patch rundown. Before we get into the actual balance changes, let's look at the one thing that everybody can agree Riot does well: the skins. We've talked about the new Crystal Rose skins in our last patch, but it turns out that, aside from the Zeri skin, they weren't set to come out on patch 12.2. Instead, we'll be getting them on patch 12.3. In case you haven't seen these beautiful skins, we're going to be seeing Crystal Rose skins for both Akshan and Janna, while Elise will be getting an evil Withered Rose counterpart. It's no wonder that these Akshans and Jannas have been incredibly dominant champions, but have only seen small micro nerfs. Gotta keep those skins selling, you know what I'm saying? On that note, how much you guys want to bet that Elise is going to be getting some buffs sent her way in the next cycle? Anyway, let's go over the system changes. This is a huge balance patch aimed at bruisers, so this is going to be a little bit longer than usual. Before we get into each individual change, we'll be starting with why these changes are happening. Riot released a quick gameplay thoughts post on this matter, but here's a summary. Basically, the biggest issue fighters as a whole face right now is that the class is very largely homogenized. The best example that Riot gives is this. What do Alawi, a Juggernaut, Fiora, a light fighter, and Vi, a diver, all have in common? The answer is almost nothing. The champions themselves are incredibly different in each of their teams and their kits and how you can use them. Yet you still end up building most of the same items on all 3 champions. The same goes for other champions across the 3 subclasses. Syrix, Gage, and Gore Drinker items are meant to make champions that are already good in teamfighting even better. But instead, you just slap the combo on any fighter and they become a heal tank and can dive 1v5 and bring down the entire enemy backline. It's kind of hard to balance Irelia and Fiora around their high skill caps when, in their current state due to itemization, they can do everything wrong and still 1v2 your ADC and support with ease. So now to dehomogenize the system, it's time for the major item changes. They stated that they originally wanted to add in some new subclass specific items, but the first step is to get rid of items that are a default buy on every single champion under the fighter label. Looking at you, Syrax. Once the current items are balanced, then maybe we'll get a chance to see some new ones. The goal with all these changes is to make fighters feel more diverse again. Champions like Darius and Alawi should still be beefy walls that you have to bring down in fights, but harder carry champions should feel like higher risk, high reward champions that have to actually outplay opponents to win the game. So now here's a quick list of changes that we're going to be seeing. Divine Sunderer is losing 100 HP and gaining 5 AD, with the Phage in the build path being changed to Caulfield's Warhammer, giving you more haste but less HP as you build the item. Gore Drinker is losing 150 HP but gaining 10 AD. Like Sunderer, it's also losing Phage in place of Caulfield's for its build path. Trinity Force is gaining 100 HP, but the stacking AD on its passive 3-fold strike is being cut in half, going from 6% stacking to 30 down to 3% up to 15. Syrix Gage is the biggest change that we're seeing. This item's entirely losing its AD stat. Now it has a passive that gives you 40% of your base AD as bonus AD. Shield duration is going from 4 seconds without decay to a 3.75 seconds decaying shield. The shield value is no longer 100 plus 8% of your max HP for each champion who has hit you. It will now be 75% of your bonus HP at all times. Death stance change is another big one, and I'm personally really excited for this one. Damage deferral effect is being lowered from 35% for melee and 15% for range down to 30 and 10, but it will now include magic damage. The heal that you get for takedowns is going from 15% of your max HP to now being 175% of your bonus AD. I think this part is huge. It means that this item will be great on bruisers that get super high AD values like Riven, but it also has potential for champions in other classes. Jhin in particular gets a very high AD stat, so the item can be easily slot in as his 5th or 6th item. To proc the healing passive, you now need to have damage the target in the last 3 seconds rather than just getting any takedown. And lastly, the damage deferral and subsequent bleed now applies to shield damage as well. It's going to cost an extra 200 gold to build now, but that's a small price to pay for such an obscenely strong item. Flight Cleaver is getting a slight stat adjustment, gaining 5 AD and haste, but losing 100 HP. Ravenous Hydra is gaining 5 AD. Malma Mortius is gaining 5 AD and haste, and the shield value is changing from having a max HP ratio to now having 200 plus 225% of your bonus AD with a penalty for ranged champions. When the Lifeline shield triggers, you now gain 12% Omnivamp until the end of combat. In addition to Maw getting these rather big buffs, Hexdrinker, the baby version of this item, is getting an extra 5 AD added onto it. I personally think that this part is quite silly. Maw has been an awful item prior to these changes, but Hexdrinker is an incredibly efficient item for AD champions to invest in for winning lane against mages. Hearthbound Axe is having its cost lowered by 100 gold, allowing bruisers to hit the spike a little bit quicker in lane. The last item change that we're going to be seeing is for Blade of the Ruined King. The price is going up by 100 gold, but in exchange, the on-hit passive is going from 10 or 6% current HP up to 12 or 8%. This change may seem quite small, but the last time the blade had values this high, it was super broken, and champions like Aurelia, Jax, and Renekton would spike insanely hard by rushing it. Anyway, that covers the system changes, so let's talk about how balance changes for the champions themselves will affect our tier list. Riven was mistakenly put into our B tier prior to this video, but she's actually been somewhere between the A and S tier for quite a while. The changes on this patch of bruiser itemization seem really good for Riven. Obviously, lower durability means that you have to actually have the skill to navigate fights with her, but if you do, her 1v9 potential is gonna be insane. Janna Top has gone from a cheesy rare off-meta pick to one of the best picks in the game in just a couple of weeks. Statistically, it's one of the highest win rate picks in the game in any role, but this OP pick doesn't come without its drawbacks. Since the pick revolves around roaming, you need a cooperative jungler and mid laner that will work with you. You also need a team that isn't fresh out of the asylum. I've seen players in Challenger throw a fit and lose the game because roaming Janna just wouldn't catch a wave top, but hey, that's NA for you. Lilia is dropping down a tier for us this patch. Usually you don't expect to see a champion moving down when they get a buff, but since bruisers are getting better magic resistance itemization options, she just isn't as great of a pick. She's still viable, especially into tanks and juggernauts, but she won't fare so well against somebody who can take advantage of the new mob plus death stance combo. Gwen was doing pretty awful for a while as a top laner, but in the recent patches, she's picked up her game and has been quite okay. Sadly for her, she's right back down to the C tier thanks to those bruiser item changes. Now for the jungle, here's our list. Kha'Zix and Rek'Sai have been both performing far too well to not be in the OP tier. Rek'Sai may be feast or famine, but she seems to feast just about every game, making her low risk but really high reward. Kha'Zix is in the same boat. He may not snowball as fast, but he still consistently gets the ball rolling by the time that you make it to the mid game, where he can usually hard carry games with pick after pick. The nerfs Talon got last patch hit him a lot harder than we expected. He just doesn't have the clear speed that he needs to be relevant on the map. He can't outduel most other champions that are being played in the jungle, and he lacks the clear speed that he needs to outpath them. Morgana moves down to the C tier because there just wasn't really a time where I think that she was worth locking in. Yeah, she can counter some engaged champions like Vi and Sejuani, but those champions are low pressure in the early game. You can either pick a super aggro pick like Shaco or Rek'Sai to snowball before they can do anything, or use her lack of presence to free farm on a hard scaling carry like Karthus or Yi. Poppy drops a tier because she just isn't that good of a blind pick. Yeah, her rough and tough bruiser playstyle makes her a strong duelist early, but unless you're using her W to counter specific divers, she falls off hard in teamfights. Gragas moves down because he just doesn't really fill any special role. His clear is healthy, but the speed is just okay, bordering on the slow end. His ganks with his flash up are decent, but what jungler has bad ganks with flash up? Outside of the early game, his damage falls off too hard to be a carry, but he also isn't quite tanky enough to be a reliable frontliner. There's just no reason to pick this guy. Now here's our mid lane tier list. The Corki change by no means kills the champion. He still has insane scaling that he gets from the Luden's build, but a lot of Corki's early game presence comes from the impact of the package for roaming and fighting early game teamfights. With it now coming later into the game and having a longer cooldown, he has to drop a notch. Now let's move down to the bot lane. No matter how fed you are on Senna, you need souls to increase your range so you can go ahead and dish out damage in fights. This nerf makes it basically impossible to get your souls up when you're playing her as an ADC, so stick to support Senna only. We didn't list Zeri in our tier list this patch because there wasn't enough info to go off of, but now we can definitely say that Zeri is nuts. She may be getting nerfed on this patch, but it's not going to change much. She's super safe, has crazy damage output in teamfights, and can absolutely hard carry teamfights, though you probably need some wrist exercises if you're going to be spamming her. To finish off, we have our supports. Both Janna and Sona moved up to the OP tier. Both champions have been performing far too well to not put them in here. Janna may have had her interaction with Glacial Fix this patch, but that's not suddenly going to make her a bad champion. She's still going to be the best peeling support in the game. Sona's 5v5 scaling is simply too good for her not to be considered OP. All you have to do is not int the first 20 minutes of the game, and you'll be providing a ton more than other supports once team fights start to happen. Alrighty, that concludes our patch 12.3 rundown. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, feel free to share your thoughts with me in the comments below. Also, check out the description for a link to join our Discord. I'm trying to be more active in it. Good luck this season, Summoners. I'm hoping the best for all of you. And as usual, see you next time, and stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.